And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Daniel Ricciardo done dirty. At least that's the question we're going to be asking after Red Bull V-Carb. And let's be fair, Red Bull are the bosses here, aren't they? Essentially, have completely disrespected one of the best Australian drivers to ever grace our TVs, our sport. That is Formula One. So, Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, I'm kind of like, I'm not to say heartbroken, because I know Daniel Ricciardo that is maybe not as good as he was in the Red Bull days against Vettel and Max Verstappen. He seemed to have taken kind of like a step back, and he was really good at Renault when he left Red Bull in 2018 to go to Renault in 2019, 2020. And he was average at McLaren in 2021 compared to Lando Norris. He did win the Italian Grand Prix. And then in 2022, he just really didn't improve. He ended up then being put on the sidelines, Red Bull's third driver. And then he, after Nick de Vries' failure, Red Bull tossed him to the curb like they do a lot of their drivers. He then entered the fray as the next Toro Rosso V-Carb driver, AlphaTauri at the time. And then unfortunately, he injured his wrist, came back a few races later, did okay. Beginning of this year was not particularly great, but in the second half of the year was doing arguably better than Yuki Tsunoda. And here we are now, where have we seen the last Grand Prix of Daniel Ricciardo? And that's the massive question that everyone is currently asking. Yes, seems to be the general consensus. However, he wasn't even if, and this is a big if that is the case, Daniel Ricciardo has not even been allowed to graciously bow out, which I personally think is absolutely abhorrent. So I do want to start though with one of my favourite Daniel Ricciardo moments, and here it is. It is back in 2017 with a certain Star Trek Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart, Professor X.
Would you like some?
I'd love some, yeah. Yeah, come
really?
on.
Oh.
You've done it before.
There we go. Patrick Stewart and the Stewie. Stewart in the street. I mean, check that out.
Cheers!
Fair play to him. I mean, look at that. Like a champ. It's just brilliant. I mean, he just drinks it like a champ. Yes, I mean, that has got to be one of the most famous shoeies ever. And that's Daniel Ricciardo all over. And I want to quickly share a post here. A guy called Jake Buckley at Masterbox on Twitter of what we are losing in terms of when you look at all of Daniel Ricciardo's career. I mean, here we go. And this is partly his opinion, but Daniel Ricciardo beat Max Verstappen in 2 out of 3 seasons at Red Bull. Would have won 3 if it not for mechanical issues. We'll never know, but fair play. You can make an argument. He beat Vettel in his first season at Red Bull, yes. And he would have been a 2-time champion if it wasn't for Mercedes dominance. Very likely. Show him some respect. And it's that respect that Red Bull very much is not showing Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, here we go. Emotional Ricciardo's, this is from the race, F1 career on the brink of ending after the Singapore Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo's Formula 1 career is hanged by a thread as he admitted a disappointing Singapore Grand Prix might have been his last race, and he was already looking increasingly likely to lose his RB seat to a certain Liam Lawson. But speculations mounted this weekend that he could be dropped before the end of 2024. And although I've got no issue with Liam Lawson taking his place next year, why in the middle of the season? This is the one thing I don't understand. And if it is his last race, you have not even let him bow out with any dignity. And it says Ricciardo cut a visibly emotional figure after a difficult race that he spent at the back and ended up with a consultation run for fastest lap that also helped the senior Red Bull team take a point off the championship rival Lando Norris. He said the physically demanding nature of the race contributed to him feeling a flood of emotions and feelings. The cockpit is something that I got very used to for many years. I just wanted to save the moment. And that's when he spent a long time in that cool down lap, which is not really good at all. I mean, here's also a nice moment where Daniel Ricciardo comments and speaks about Max Verstappen being, one of the few people reaching out.
He's always been very appreciative of our friendship and supportive, and even after Japan this year, I was getting quite a lot of stick, and he was one of the only guys that sent me a text and said, "Mate, keep your head up. We know what you're capable of. Don't listen to the noise." And
how nice is that?
Yeah, so respect and appreciate him a lot.
That's nice to hear.
He's always been
absolutely 110% respect for Max Verstappen for doing it. Yes, they were fierce rivals on the track. They did have a bit of argy-bargy issues, for example, in Baku, let's say. But I mean, well done. Fair play for Max Verstappen. Absolutely brilliant. And it's also been revealed that Daniel Ricciardo's behind closed doors he met with Norris, it goes, as Red Bull axe looms from Planet F1. And that's the claim from Kim Illman, who says the former McLaren teammates spent around 10 minutes together in a moment likely captured by the cameras of Netflix Drive to Survive. And as we all know, it's likely to be his last race. When informed over the team radio after the checkered flag, Ricciardo had taken the fastest lap points. Norris Verstappen was heard responding, saying, from Norris, "Thank you, Daniel." Obviously, McLaren have a few issues with that, but there we go. And Ricciardo didn't want to leave the F1 paddock, as Red Bull had done him dirty. And this is once again from Illman, the amazing photographer. Red Bull have been accused of doing Daniel Ricciardo dirty at the Singapore Grand Prix. And I think they have. I mean, at the moment, assuming this is his last Grand Prix, you have to go tick, yes, done dirty. I mean, it's just really sad. In a clip on social media, photographer Kil Illman described the scene outside VCAR's hospitality unit after the race in Singapore, revealing that Ricciardo didn't want to leave the paddock for the last time. He lifted the lid on the general consensus that in the paddock that Red Bull had done him dirty by not confirming their plans for the rest of the season prior to the Singapore Grand Prix, with Ricciardo forced to answer questions related to his own future throughout the weekend. Illman said, "We're saying goodbye to Daniel, and what we've seen here tonight was quite remarkable. Dan's been hugging everybody. People have been coming up to him saying how much of a treasure he is for Formula One. A lot of people saying Red Bull have done him dirty by not coming clean and letting people know what the situation is." Absolutely. Well done for saying that. He sat in his car long term after the race, gathering his thoughts. He's done a lot of media today, and he must be the last driver in the paddock. I don't think he wants to leave. Only Daniel, I believe, is left in this paddock. It's going to be a sad day when the official announcement comes, and the official announcement has not come. I mean, let's just refresh the Planet F1. Nope, hasn't come yet either. There were suggestions it might be coming today, as in Tuesday the 24th of September. That hasn't come yet. I mean, it's Red Bull, hang your head in shame for the senior managers. I mean, let's be honest, they haven't really, I mean, when you look at Marco, Christian Horner, I think Oliver Mintzlaff, embroiled in this whole thing at the beginning of the year. Bear in mind, you've got a really hard-working team, one of the best teams in Formula One when you look at the talent they've had. Yes, they are losing people, but I think they all need to hang their head in shame. The whole Red Bull company, as in at a senior level, absolutely ridiculous and a complete joke for the way they treat situations like this. It's not good at all. It's not good at all. So on Crash, it says Daniel Ricciardo crashed on an expected F1 exit labelled half-hearted and confusing, and that's by Martin Bondolef, questioning the manner of Daniel Ricciardo's expected exit from Red Bull. Left half-hearted and confusing as he finished. Sergio Perez would obviously bring it in. Writing in his post-race column for Sky, the ex-F1 turned commentator said he left confused. He said Sergio Perez would bring the Red Bull home in 10th from 13th on the grid for yet another disappointing event. Yes, this is a real problem for Red Bull going into 2025. He said their sister team, RB, kindly brought Daniel Ricciardo in for fresh tyres right at the end, and he would deliver the fastest lap of the race, which wouldn't earn him a championship point down there, but importantly, take it away from Norris and McLaren, who are complaining of unfair tactics. He said it was Daniel's last race in F1 for a while, and perhaps forever. It was a rather half-hearted and confusing exit from the team perspective, the fans rewarded him with Driver of the Day as a farewell present, and that leaves him with a tally of 257 starts, 8 wins, 3 poles, 32 podiums, and an awful lot of smiles and happy fans. Well done and good luck to him, whatever happens next. He's a quality guy and a world-class driver. And it looks like Liam Lawson is going to take over from Austin, which in a way is also unfair on Liam Lawson, I think, because it puts immediate pressure on him, which we know he can take, going into Austin. I just hope, because Daniel Ricciardo is one of the most popular drivers in Austin, that Lawson does get a welcome reception, because it's not his fault. He's taken over Daniel Ricciardo's, place. It's arguably Daniel Ricciardo's, but more importantly, the way it's happened is the Red Bull senior management, which, once again, I keep saying they're a joke. And now a big, tinfoil hats, pinch of salt. It says here, Ricciardo F1 Lifeline remain as star not out of Red Bull. There may be Formula One hope for Daniel Ricciardo yet, despite reports that he'll be axed. What is this hope? However, the team have retained faith. The Mexican star leaving Ricciardo to battle for his job. Yeah, well, they maintained. Yeah, they had faith in Sergio Perez. Why, I don't know. Prior to the Singapore Grand Prix, Red Bull chief Helmut Marko stated that Liam Lawson would be on the F1 grid in 25, leading to speculation that Ricciardo was going to be replaced. Then ahead of the weekend, obviously we had these rumours. Q and exit. Is this just clickbait? Let's see. Brundle continued it, obviously. If indeed Ricciardo did remain in Red Bull's pool of drivers, it could potentially mean he's being considered for 2 teams next season. His current team RB are yet to confirm. They've got Yuki Tsunoda, but if Red Bull... So what they're saying is if Sergio Perez leaves, there's a tiny chance that Daniel Ricciardo could take Perez's place. I would make an argument. I would make an argument that Daniel Ricciardo would be a better replacement for Sergio Perez. Are there other potential better drivers? Possibly, probably. But right now, I think Daniel Ricciardo would do a better job than Sergio Perez. But anyway... F1 has a lot to thank for Daniel Ricciardo, and so does Drive to Survive. 2 people made Drive to Survive, because if you remember, the first ever season, the arrogance, I think, of both Mercedes and Ferrari didn't want anything to do with it. And it was left to a certain Gunther Steiner and Daniel Ricciardo to absolutely make Drive to Survive, which then, in turn, made Formula One as popular as it is today. So you can make an argument that a lot of that is for both Daniel Ricciardo and Gunther Steiner. And if that's one of the legacy he does leave, making Formula One mainstream, even more mainstream, especially mainstream in America, then I think he can hang his head up high, along with his 8 wins. At the time, one of the best overtakers, arguably the best driver in 2014. And that's the year Lewis Hamilton won his 2nd championship. Daniel Ricciardo, we salute you. You have been done dirty by Red Bull, but your fans remember you. You just need to see that by the fact that you won driver of the race to Subite, finishing near last, because we all know that you've been absolutely disrespected. Anyway, if you want to subscribe, that'd be great. If you're not, I'd really appreciate that. Hit that notification button if you do not want to miss a race. And we will speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Outro.